As a signifier of social standing and identity, clothing allowed for the articulation of narratives both reflective of colonial domination and resistant to it. In the language of dress, Steve O'Buckridge argues that as the principal visible element in the face-to-face relationship between the colonized and the colonizer, clothing served as the medium in which these relationships were enacted and contested. Clothing and style, therefore, had the capacity to be highly transformative. Within Jamaican colonized society, clothes and the related material culture of dress gave oppressed peoples the opportunity for either accommodation or resistance. By outfitting themselves in clothes considered uncharacteristic for their traditional social status, styles of dress could be heavily manipulated with the aim of concealing class identity. This enabled a form of covert resistance, undermining assumed power relations and permitting some fabricated social mobility. This function of dress was particularly significant for enslaved peoples, with the clothing of a freed person being used as a means of escape. One such example is that of Mary Sadler, who managed to escape slavery with her 2 sons in 1779. She is described in a runaway advertisement in the Jamaica Mercury as dressing like a free woman, with shoes, stockings, and a European-style high-crown hat. The secondary purpose of clothing as public performance was in this instance invaluable, having enabled her to assimilate into freed society without extensive questioning. This highlights the transformative power of dress within colonial North America, and its significance not just for cultural identity, but the lived reality of oppressed peoples within the time period. However, accommodation to European fashions would have never resulted in full social acceptance. The symbolic power of dress was limited by racial prejudice and bigotry, rendering full assimilation impossible for freed men and women, or those disguised as such. The wearing of non-European cultural styles in colonial Jamaica can also be seen as a form of resistance. Though many slave owners considered the head wrap a key marker of enslavement, as seen in examples of the racist mammy stereotype such as the Aunt Jemima of the US South, enslaved women of African descent may have in fact retained styles of head wrap specific to their individual places of origin. The versatility of the head wrap allowed for distinguishing fashions that were not based in Eurocentrism. For example, the diversity of head wraps can be seen in this photograph of 4 Jamaican girls post-emancipation. Each child wears a different style, emphasising the creativity and individuality attached to the headdress. More active forms of dress-related resistance can also be seen in earlier periods of Jamaican history. For example, in 1760, an enslaved woman known as Cuba helped plan a rebellion in the eastern part of Jamaica involving hundreds of enslaved peoples. Referred to as Queen Cuba in slave meetings, she also took on the dress of a monarch. With a crown on her head, a short robe upon her shoulders, and carrying a wooden sword with a red feather stuck to the handle, Cuba's choice of clothing was a direct affront to European colonial dominance. Though the transformative power of clothing was in this instance likely short-lived, it acted as a means to affirm independence, selfhood, and autonomy. It was a crucial example of resistance against an institution of slavery which sought to objectify, dehumanize, and degrade.